what we chose to do is basically look at the ideas of what we were given and then present some opportunities for you folks to actually go and click on some places that you can look and find out more information about what we were actually dealing with. So overviewing and outlining the standards, we watched a bit of the video by Douglas Reeves and his discussion of the Common Core State Standards and took out some of that information that we felt like applied to us. And Mr. Conway and Mr. Anglin, both over here, were very helpful in their assessments of what was going on. First and foremost, we thought that they were more rigorous and much more clear than most of the standards that we've been given so far. As you all know, you've read through their standards, you've looked at them. They can be a little daunting for one. There's basically way too much information there for us to be able to process, and yet they really don't give you enough information. They also have connections between the grade levels, which gives us a better opportunity to begin that process of what we're talking about, or continue that process of what we've been talking about from going a K through 12 comprehensive curriculum. And then emphasis on nonfiction writing. This is one thing that I particularly like because it's informational. It's one of those things that has to be done for our students to be successful once they go to college. As Mr. Reeves was pointing out, students think that their writing is 8 times more proficient than college professors do, which is a little bit scary when you consider that. They have interdisciplinary reading and writing as well, which again is important because as I've always kind of been in the wrong frame of mind thinking about Angie being the only person who teaches reading and writing, I've learned through the years that that's not the case, that we all have that responsibility. And then the standards are the same everywhere. According to the PowerPoints that we viewed, there are 48 states and 2 territories that go there, with Texas and Alaska being the only 2 holdouts, and so shocked that that's the case. And then, the people that are affected by the CCSS is basically, it's all of the shareholders, the stakeholders in the school. It's everybody. It's the students, it's the teachers, the parents, the administrators, the school board members, and the community. It's all impacted on these people. This is who has to step up to the plate at some point. We had that meeting last night. The parents were talking about having wireless access, and what if we don't have that wireless access? If they want their students to meet this, maybe they're going to have to step up and get that wireless access.
Or be available before, during, or after school.
Absolutely.
Could you say that again?
Be having your students available before, during, or after school for extra help, extra time with the technology that is available.
I would say that also, in addition to all those other stakeholders in there, I would say businesses and employers, because I mean they will be impacted by this ultimately. And I think that's part of the goal, right? Is to,
well, absolutely. They've got to be prepared for the workforce.
Right.
And then the comparison and contrasting the standards to our current standards. The standards we're moving toward appear to be much more rigorous. We don't have all the information for them as yet, but they look to be much more rigorous than what we're dealing with right now. They still allow a tremendous amount of teacher flexibility, so you have a lot of leeway in what you're going to teach and how you're going to teach it. You're not being told what specifically to teach, which Mr. Anglin and I discussed a little bit about. We might actually like having a bit more direction from either the state or the national government on what exactly they expect us to teach. I think that might be a little handy. It integrates the subject areas rather than teaching them in isolation. We don't, as we've been compartmentalized in the high school in 7th through 12th grade for so long, that, I mean, it's very difficult for us to get together and really implement this kind of thing. And then finally, the student-directed learning that is very common in this kind of thing. Students are expected to be more involved in what they choose to do, more involved in their whole educational aspect. If we have students who are not prepared to do that, then we're going to have those students that are left behind, unlike the NCOB Act encourages us not to do. But those students are going to be responsible for them being left behind. It's not going to be us leaving them behind. It's going to be them that are not prepared to move on. That's going to be the biggest issue. I think that we can get all those kids to that point, but that's one of the biggest issues I see being a problem. The relevant differences. And you'll see this first statement a couple of times. The CCSSs, they move us toward an integrated subject area with literacy rather than teaching them in isolation. Talked about that on the last slide. We're trying to make sure that we're not being compartmentalized, but being dovetailed together so that we all can work on the same things and make everyone's job easier and hopefully make the student's educational life much easier as well. And then the expectations of the student are more rigorous while still allowing more flexibility. Again, kids are going to have a lot more say in how they manage their education. We're not going to be the fonts of information for them and just basically regurgitate what we're telling them is the facts. They're going to find out those facts for themselves. And then we put a couple of websites up here for you to take a look at that demonstrate ways to begin to change the teaching the Common Core state standards. And one of them is teaching as inquiry overall, and then specifically for Mr. Anglin, we put on learning science through inquiry. We think that inquiry teaching is a great way to begin this whole CCSS process. Without inquiry teaching, this might actually be a dead technology before it ever really gets off the ground. So, and this is available on the iDrive, Becky. So you can write it if you like, but it's available on the iDrive under CCSS Masterful Presentation. So,
You're going to forward that to me too?
Sure, we
Thank
can
you.
forward it to anybody who would like. Anyway, I'll send an email out, or Brian and I can send an email out to you folks with the direct link, so that you know where it's at instead of having to write it down. Then you can just
On
direct
the
link to it.
inquiry, and this is the same thing that's been pushed with science through teaching through inquiry for, I'm going to say, the last 30 years. It's not new. It's being packaged as new, but it's not. It's kind of a working practice for many, many years.
And that's for the teachers that have been willing to try the inquiry method. This is really going to encourage all of those teachers to try the inquiry method rather than those forward-thinking ones like Brian who already do that kind of thing. And then we went ahead and actually put down a couple of the standards for professional learning, as you folks have here. We did this thing because we felt like the things that we looked at covered both resources and, at this point, learning communities. We couldn't really relate them to the other, how many other, 4 more? We couldn't really relate them to 5 more. We couldn't really relate them directly to that from the stuff that we had done. I see that overall, yes, this is going to impact all of those things, but initially this is really what we came up with as being the things that impacted how Brian and I and Larry looked at this. And then finally, last but not least, we focused on administrators and teachers by giving them links and information from which they can make their own judgments. I don't want to tell you how to think about this, and I don't think that the people who engineered the CCSSs want to tell us how to think about it either. I think they want us to use the skills and the technologies that we've been given as educators to make our own judgments on it and go forward with it as effectively as we possibly can to make the education for our children that much more effective.